So Donald Trump did nothing this weekend, and I mean nothing. He has a war on in Iran, a war he's supposed to be easily negotiating the end to, a nuclear agreement he's supposed to be easily negotiating with Iran, and he did nothing, didn't spend 1 second on it. Instead, Donald Trump negotiated about soccer. Forget his war. Soccer was more important to him. And so the corrupt politician turned soccer referee, Donald Trump, polluted the World Cup competition with one of his ugly Trump pardons. And this time it was for the kind of person who Donald Trump says he hates, despises, and never wants in the United States. As the world knows by now, Donald Trump corrupted the organization that runs the World Cup that has already been stained by corruption in the past. Even I know that. Donald Trump, who knows as much about soccer as I do, which is next to nothing, as you've just seen, decided he didn't like a foul being called on the American team's best player or one of their best players. And so he called the infantile president of the World Cup organization, whose name is actually Gianni Infantino, and who has publicly sucked up to Donald Trump in the most infantile ways, including by giving Donald Trump his very own fake World Cup and, of course, a peace prize. Donald Trump then became the only president in history to accept a fake peace prize. Donald Trump called up Mr. Infantino to ask him to reverse the call of a foul against the star of the USA team, Folarin Balogun.
I didn't think it was a foul.
Really? Well, that's what millions of drunks at bars around America said at the time, too. And that's what millions of sober soccer fans said at the time. Millions of others didn't, but millions did. And just as those people have said it thousands of times before in their lives as fans. And they lived with it because that's what fans do. That's the way sports works. The referees make a call you don't like, but you live with it, unless you're Donald Trump. And you know that the soccer president guy who pays rent to you for his office in Trump Tower in Manhattan will do whatever you, his landlord, want him to do. And so Mr. Infantino takes that phone call from his landlord, Donald Trump, and the foul goes away. And Folarin Balogun is suddenly allowed to play in the next game, and Donald Trump did all of that, surely without knowing that Folarin Balogun is not just a dual citizen. He is actually a tri-citizen, something I did not know was possible until today. He's a citizen of Nigeria. He's also a citizen of the United Kingdom, and he is a citizen of the United States of America because 25 years ago, his Nigerian mother came to New York City as a visitor while she was pregnant and delivered her baby here. And you have heard Donald Trump scream about that time and time again. And that baby, whose birth in the United States Donald Trump was opposed to, who is now an American citizen by birthright citizenship, is one of the best players or the best player on the USA team. And Donald Trump wants to stop anyone from getting their citizenship that way. Donald Trump asked the United States Supreme Court to reject that citizenship. Donald Trump asked the Supreme Court to prevent anyone else from Nigeria or anywhere else in the world from ever coming to this country while pregnant and delivering a baby here who then achieves American citizenship by birthright citizenship. The USA soccer team, I don't know, might not have won a game. And I don't know. Maybe not win a game in the World Cup without that birthright citizen on their team. Donald Trump's anti-immigration madness landed on David Streever, who publicly shared the opinion that Donald Trump's acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement is a monstrous human being. Those are his words, monstrous human being, after the killing of 2 U.S. citizens by Donald Trump's immigration invasion forces in Minneapolis. Both of those killings you can judge for yourself, and maybe you have already, because the evidence exists on video that tells that story. And those videos clearly show enough evidence to prosecute the agents in both of those cases for murder in those killings in Minneapolis. And so calling the acting director of an agency that can reasonably be accused of murder a monstrous human being should not surprise anyone, especially in this country. And so Todd Lyons, who was the acting director at the time, still has to bear the burden of being called a monstrous human being, and worse, by anyone who wants to call him that, because he lives and works in the United States of America, where we all get to do that whenever we want. Many more people have called Donald Trump a monstrous human being, and worse, in writing and into microphones, and will continue to do so. And surely many historians over the next couple of hundred years will be calling Donald Trump a monstrous human being in writing forever. But in Donald Trump's America, if you call the acting director of ICE a monstrous human being, ICE agents show up at your house. Here they are, at David Streever's front door when he wasn't home. They showed up there trying to intimidate him for sending an email, trying to get him to sign a document saying that calling the acting director of ICE in that email a monstrous human being could be a crime, which it could not be, and isn't and wasn't. And those ICE agents were there violating the Constitution of the United States. If anything, those ICE agents were on the verge of committing a crime, not David Streever. The Washington Post reports Streever called Lyons a monstrous human being, and America's Reinhard Heydrich, a reference to a high-ranking official in Nazi Germany who oversaw the regime's secret police. He says he never dreamed the note would lead to a knock on his own door. Streever wasn't home, but DHS tracked him to a hotel in New York City where he and his 7-year-old daughter were staying overnight after returning from a trip to Finland. Agents told the hotel front desk they were looking for him, left repeated voicemails, and sought to have him sign an unusual warning notice saying his email could be a crime. Imagine using federal government investigative resources that way, wasting them that way, abusing the Constitution that way. David Streever is now suing the Department of Homeland Security in a lawsuit that says, quote, the First Amendment freedom to speak out in opposition to police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. The Department of Homeland Security is actively threatening that freedom, tracking down and retaliating against speakers like plaintiff David Streever, because he exercised his fundamental right to criticize one of the highest-ranking law enforcement officers in the United States. Our Constitution does not tolerate such a brazen abuse of authority, but a criminally inclined president like Donald Trump, who is seen by most of the world now as a monstrous human being, does indeed tolerate such brazen abuse of authority and encourage it. J.D. Vance compared Donald Trump to Hitler, and now J.D. Vance is his vice president. Why didn't he get a knock on the door? No one knocked on J.D. Vance's front door when he compared Donald Trump to Hitler. Back when James David Vance was opposed to Donald Trump, he called him cultural heroin. It was exactly 10 years ago, on July 4th, 2016, that J.D. Vance published an essay saying, what Trump offers is an easy escape from the pain. To every complex problem, he promises a simple solution. He never offers details for how these plans will work because he can't. Trump's promises are the needle in America's collective vein. The great tragedy is that many of the problems Trump identifies are real, and so many of the hurts he exploits demand serious thought and measured action. Yet so long as people rely on that quick high, so long as wolves point their fingers at everyone but themselves, the nation delays a necessary reckoning. There is no self-reflection in the midst of a false euphoria. Trump is cultural heroin. He makes some people feel better for a bit, but he cannot fix what ails them. And one day, they'll realize it. Donald Trump celebrated the 4th of July with pardons for rich people. The New York Times reports that on Friday, Donald Trump issued pardons to 11 men, most of whom had been convicted of crimes related to the Clean Air Act, a bedrock environmental law. The president also pardoned Adam Kidden, a major donor to Republicans, including Mr. Trump. He had served about 2.5 years in prison for his role in a fraud scheme involving the disgraced former lobbyist Jack Abramoff. One of the big differences between the Democratic Party and Republican Party is on display in Maine tonight, where Democratic Senate nominee Graham Plattner is at the evaluating the path forward stage of his campaign. That's what he said tonight in a video statement after new allegations emerged today of sexual misconduct and aggression with a former girlfriend in Maine. This comes after many other scandalous revelations about the candidate. When the then Democratic frontrunner for governor in California, Eric Swalwell, issued a similar style video statement saying he was going to spend some time with his family evaluating his candidacy, 48 hours later, he announced he was dropping out of the race. That's the normal schedule in these matters. No one can remember the last time a candidate announced he was evaluating the path forward, who then found a path forward for his candidacy. Graham Plattner would probably not be facing any problems at all in his party if he were a Republican nominee. Texas Attorney General, candidate for Senate in Texas, was impeached by his own party in the Texas House of Representatives. And he has Donald Trump's full endorsement. Democrats in Maine still have time to replace Graham Plattner on the ballot. And now Democratic members of the United States Senate are abandoning his candidacy.